What makes a show good? What makes a show or story good? What makes a piece of art good? So what you have is this word. It seems pretty interesting that we can have, a single word that describes an entire story or character or anything like that. And I kind of wanted to talk about what it means when somebody says a story is good, or on the flip side, when a story is bad, or when a story is great, or anything like that. Because what you have is you'll find, especially if you really push people who describe, oh yeah, this was good, or something like that, very quickly it'll become very difficult for them to explicitly say why. So what you'll have is, imagine you're looking at a piece of art, a painting or something like that. It's one of these paintings. It has the gold leaf and outline for the canvas. The frame is very beautiful and ornate. And inside there's some, Renaissance looking man like this. And he's got like a nice vest, and he's got a beard, and he's looking very noble, and he's doing some bizarre pose or something. And he'll hold something. Maybe he's got a sword right here along the side or something like that. And it'll be like, Mr. Senior Ferdinand I think that's the ninth, something like that, and so you're looking at this is an romantic era or impressionistic era or Edwardian era, some sort of era of painting. And what you've got then is somebody describing this as a good painting. Now, they're saying it's good because this is the impression, the feeling that they have. What they don't have, or what they don't explicitly say is, this is good brushstrokes. This is good brushstrokes. I can tell from here, this is good color choice. The color choice here is communicating and evoking this, emotion or anything like that. The style, this is very clearly this is very much a continuation or break in this or that style, something along those lines. And all of this is getting bundled up in this word good, to the point where most people wouldn't really even be able to articulate why a show is good or not. They're just like, well, usually what you'll get is something along the lines of, oh, well, they had good characters. And then all you're doing is kicking this buck down, where you say, oh, they have good characters, they had good dialogue, they had good action, or anything like that. Any of these things are usually what people will say, but then it becomes very diluted because, what makes good characters? What makes good dialogue? What makes good action? Really trying to dig deeper on this, and this is where people start to have trouble. But people still can make their opinions on what is good or what is bad, but it can be hard to kind of articulate that. So usually what people are going off of is, how does they feel while watching the show? If you're feeling bored, it's probably not good. If you're feeling, cringe, or any of these other sort of things, there's something going on, and it's all these little details that are going to make up this feeling that the audience has. So what I was thinking about this in terms of is, I've been watching The Rings of Power TV show, and it's Netflix's, they bought the rights to do some Lord of the Rings stuff, because I think Jeff Bezos really wants his own Game of Thrones, and didn't get it with the Wheel of Time, so now he's trying with Lord of the Rings to see from here. It's probably a good moneymaker. Lord of the Rings is probably one of the most beloved fantasy series of all time, or very, very much up there. The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson's, the original, Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King are probably some of the highest rated and most well loved, especially for sequels and a trilogy. If you compare that to like The Matrix or something like that, you can really see how much of a difference it'll make if the sequels can do well, if the sequels are good from here. And so one thing I was noticing when I was watching The Rings of Power is that I was getting this feeling that everyone seemed meh. Everyone seemed meh. The story opens, and I'll try and articulate, we'll go into detail as to why I was feeling this way. What I was noticing is that I was like, I didn't really care for too many of the people. I was kind of bored, and everything seemed off, and I was having a hard time putting my finger on it from there. And then I started digging a little bit deeper, going into these, nuts and bolts, trying to figure out what was going on behind it. So to start off with our story, we have little Galadriel. And her introduction, her character introduction, is that, she's a young elf and she's different, and other people bully her, but she's very, very smart. She's too smart for everyone around her. And she has this older elf who's her brother, and he, really takes her under her wing. I don't know if he's actually her brother or if it's just kind of like an honorific title from there. But anyway, time passes, and suddenly, Sauron is there, who's a magician wizard who leads a bunch of orcs. A bunch of people die. But the elves finally manage to push him back, and Sauron vanishes from Middle-earth. The brother is dead, and Galadriel vows vengeance. She's like, I am not going to rest until... Oops. Let's pretend I know how to spell. All right, close enough. She vows revenge on her brother because Sauron or his orcs killed him. So she's determined to go after Sauron and will not rest until she finds him. So far, this is a fairly okay, strong opening. From there, usually what you'll do with the bully aspect is you want the audience to take your main character, MC, our main character's side. And so what you'll be doing is you'll be given a conflict, and they'll have a bully who's rude to the main character. And then the audience watching will pick a side, essentially. And we usually know basically what they're going to pick. So, of course, we pick Galadriel, so it's kind of to endear us. It's also to do some character development where she this kind of isolation. The only person who understood her is the brother, and then now he's dead. So what we were able to do with this, the scene was trying to do is endear us to Galadriel while also setting up a motivation character. This is the mom in the superhero movie, the aunt, the uncle, the brother, the family member, the only one who ever treated them right, and then they're killed by orcs. Bam! So sad. But this is the vengeance arc is set off by this. This is what this is aimed to do from here. And so on this vengeance arc, she's leading a troop, probably about 8 or 10 elves, up through this winter Iceland area. They're climbing up this side of this cliff, and they've got like these like pickaxe things that they're holding on to, and it's very, very perilous. And there, let's see, it's like that, and then there's the head, and this, and they're like sticking their feet in there, and their legs bend backwards sometimes because people can't draw. But they're climbing up, and it's very perilous, and some of them almost fall, but Galadriel does it with ease. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to set her up as a powerful character. The P and the carrot is what I use for this. So she's very, very capable. So she gets up here, they get it, and then some of her troops start falling, and they're not doing too great, and they're like, Galadriel, can't we stop? Can't we go back? Because we've already gone way past what we should have done. We should go back. We can go report to our people. And she goes, no, we must go on. We have to go on. We must go on. And then they see in the distance this dark, spiky tower-looking thing. And it's very clearly not an accident or anything like that. And it's very ominous. If you were a dark evil wizard, this is what would pop up on Zillow for you in your area. This is very much where a dark evil wizard would live. They go inside, naturally, because Galadriel's like, huzzah, we found something. They go inside, and she keeps finding, she finds, the proof of this symbol-looking thing. I can't draw it, because I can't, let's see. It's like that, and then... Yeah, it's like, actually, yeah, I can't draw it. All right, it's a symbol. Look it up on Google. And so she goes there. They find some evidence. There's some signs that Sauron was here, but nothing really conclusive from here. And the rest of her party are like, we need to go. And she's like, all right, we're going to keep finding stuff. And then they're attacked by an ice troll, shows up, and Galadriel kills it. And she does it with ease. She has easy peasy, no problem. So she kills it. And then the rest of her troops are like, we are going home. And she has this feeling where she feels betrayed. You can really get this idea. And this is where I started to feel a little weird, because I was really coming to kind of understand, a little bit more. You understand the dynamic of the character, her motivations. The story has very much set up that we are supposed to identify with Galadriel. We're supposed to understand her plight, her journey. All this is supposed to go along with Galadriel. I also kind of get the idea that they're not really trying to make her out to be like a perfect character. Like I think the idea is that she's supposed to have flaws and whatnot. But the problem is that she comes across as a bad leader in my mind. She's just simply a bad leader. Like when your people are falling down and they're like potentially getting frostbite, and it's ice all around, they can't kill an ice troll with ease. They're just regular elves. So what if she's like this amazing, amazing Superman, James Bond, kung fu thing? She's going to make it out alive, but nobody else will. So they all say, we are turning around. We're not going on. I don't really know why she needs them to come with them either. That's the other thing. Because it's like she's so capable that she clearly doesn't need anybody else to go with her. Like, I don't really know why. I don't know why. But they decide to go back and they basically reject her leadership and go back to wherever the elf kingdom is from here. It's not really specified on the maps or anything like that. If you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, if I had to guess, it's probably near Rivendell, kind of that whole area, because they're very much, the Northlands. So it seems reasonable that somewhere in that region from there. But they go back, and here Galadriel meets with her buddy Elrond, and he's like, welcome back, this is great, it's good that you're home. And she's like, nope, I'm going to go back out there. And he's like, maybe you should take a rest. Maybe this is peace. We haven't found anything. You haven't found anything. Nothing seems to be going right from here. And she's like, nope, I'm going at it. I'm going to go speak to the king and I'm going to go argue with him, until he gives me what I want. And he's like, listen, you already pissed the king off from here. And you really shouldn't push it. He's from there, and she's like, yep, my men betrayed me. And he's like, actually, you betrayed your men. You didn't do the right thing. From here, you basically killed them. And here's the interesting thing is because the story is setting us up to where we're really supposed to take Galadriel's side in this whole thing. We had the heartfelt story as her as a boy or as a young girl, and she was bullied and she's smarter than everyone than like this. And then we have a similar situation where Elrond's kind of like tut to a degree. And she's like, you don't understand. But I agreed with Elrond. I was like, yes, a bad leader. You do not sacrifice your men on your harebrained scheme. You go back to your, like you have up in this ice place, they have zero supplies, zero backup, zero people even know where they are. So if they get in trouble, nobody's coming after them. It's just all around, and you found signs of Sauron. Maybe you can go back, get some stuff, and then you can journey back to the north from there. There is a rational plan. Like it's not like Sauron was just there, like he just left. There seemed to be something just there. But if it was something that it was just there, then she should have just stayed. You don't need the rest of the other people. You can kill ice trolls by yourself and, climb up cliffs by yourself. You have no problem. You don't need the other people. And so this is one of those things where I was like, okay, so far this show seems good. Like everything, the action, the scenery is really good. The action is a little bit floaty. I really don't care for that style. I know it's like House of Flying Daggers sort of style so far, but I didn't care for that. Don't care for that. I prefer more clean cut action, something like Jackie Chan or even the sword fights and stuff in the original Star Wars trilogy, like Episode 3. The movie's kind of, but the sword fighting is actually pretty good in terms of they move quick and it really packs a punch from there. You have this aspect. So everything is so far, the acting's okay. Up until the Elf King shows up, because this guy is, this is the strongest mall elf energy that I've ever seen in my life. It's kind of like, hey, we got your dad. You take your fanny pack off and your jorts off. We need you to come be an elf. Here's some pointy ears and here's a wig. And he's like, well, Elrond, it's a good idea, because they decide that they're going to ship Galadriel off because they're going to give her the honor of returning home to the Valinor or Valar, wherever it is, basically the elf homeland. And everyone else is super pumped to go home except for her, because she feels conflicted. And Elrond's like, yeah, you should go. You should really go. And she's like, I don't know. she still has this whole Sauron thing. Still has this whole vengeance quest that she needs to figure out from there, and she doesn't really know what she wants to do at this point. But she ends up going, okay, you know what? Let's go along with it. And so they get in this boat because the idea is maybe there in the homeland you will find peace. You will put this all to rest. And so what you understand here, and this is the part where I think a lot of people had a lot of rejection of the story and everything like that, because there's a lot of stuff and dynamics at play. You have two men who are kind of sneaky and deciding what is best for one female, one woman. And you have this whole sexism dynamic going on where you have these two men who are like, we're planning this out and we're deciding what's best for you because you clearly don't know what's going on. We all know how that dynamic is supposed to be interpreted generally. The way the whole thing is set up. It's not the elf queen who's like, listen, lady, you're kind of Coco. You're kind of loco for Coco, so we were shipping you off. It's her friend. This is kind of a betrayal sort of aspect to some degree, because Elrond's supposed to be her friend. We have this whole setup for their backstory, the bullies, her standing up, her standing against the crowd. The whole fact that the audience, because there's a TV show to be shown, Sauron's coming back. Like, it's just a matter of time. For some reason, all the elves are just like, nope, no Sauron, no nothing. Easy peasy, we're done. From here, and so what the idea of all these scenes is supposed to do is to make us take the side of Galadriel, but what happens if you don't? What happens if you reject it? And I really think this is what has happened, is because there's a lot of, all of the story, all of this is pointing towards Galadriel, Galadriel as a character, and what the story is riding on is her as a character. But what happens if you disagree? What happens if you don't like her? What happens if you think she's a bad leader because she almost got her troops killed and they were dying of frostbite and they were hungry and they had zero backup and going into a zero spiky wizard's tower? This is the other thing for me, is I'm like, she's amazing, but do you think if you're a regular elf, do you want to go like 8 people versus the strongest wizard on the entire continent? Maybe you need at least 10, or 12, or 3,000. You need more people if you're going to go up against this, unless you have superpower Galadriel who can kill everything. Maybe she can, but if I'm the backup there, playing red shirt, I'm expecting to die first from there. So she's not a great leader. And there's ways you could honestly set this up. This is the thing that kind of makes it a little bit frustrating, is you don't have to make it this way. What you need to do is you just change, okay, Elf King, Maul King, and Elrond, they don't fight against her and say Sauron doesn't exist or bury their head in the sand or anything like that. Their line, all it needs to be is, we don't know where to look. We have no idea where to look. If you can find him, tell us, and then we'll go kill him. But we don't know where to look. In the meantime, we have X problem. This is the thing. They need to have another problem. It doesn't need to be, we're not doing anything, so it's easy. What it needs to be is there needs to be another pressing issue, because now the Maul King and Elrond are seen as much smarter, which means that if Galadriel is smarter than them, it just makes her in better standing. Because the problem right now is they seem a little bit dumb, a little bit short-sighted, and she seems even more short-sighted. There's this aspect where you could have, hey, they're having problems with dwarves, evil dwarves. It could be goblins. It could be, elf factions. If you read the Silmarillion, there's elf factions which hate each other. That could be something where, hey, they're preparing for tensions with the elf faction. You could kind of expand on this, so you could say, hey, we would love to focus on Sauron, but we've got these problems. And so if you find something for us to do, we'll go with it. And until then, we're going to be busy with X problem. That makes everybody seem so much smarter. That's not what happens, though. So Galadriel gets on a boat. She gets on a boat, and there's ships sailing, out of the Grey Havens to the shiny sunland where there's like sun rays beaming down. And they get there, and she's, there's this whole ritual aspect. The show really is trying to craft a scene to make you really feel like you're in it. And it's kind of working, kind of not. From there, but the main part is as they're getting ready to get to, the elf homeland, Galadriel jumps out. And you might say, wait a minute, There's no land for miles around. There's got to be something around. Nope. There's got to be at least a boat around that she saw. Nope. There's got to at least be some sort of plan. Nope. Maybe it's really dark and she was planning on killing herself. Nope. And this is the part where you're like, you know what? Elrond was right. She's dumb. She needs to be protected. That's why we need to get her to Elf Homeland and out of Middle-earth, because she's going to kill herself. Not only is she going to kill all of her troops, but she's going to kill herself. And this is the problem with this whole thing, is this is what you're setting up your magnanimous show, you know, the new Game of Thrones 2, but better, hopefully, is that you have a character, this is the character that was in the marketing. You know, she is the main character. She's the lead. She's supposed to carry the story, and she seems dumb. By all accounts, she seems actually pretty dumb. And this is the problem. This is where you get this audience rejection from here, where the audience has this visceral rejection where they're saying, you know, I disagree with this. I don't like Galadriel. I don't actually agree with it. Even though the story is doing so much to try and pitch it to where we're supposed to take her side. You know, you have Maul King, the Maul Elf King, and Elrond, who are both manipulating her. Two men. You have all this thing. She's she's been bullied. She's the only one who's smart enough to see what's going on. She's not crazy. These people. You have all of this, and yet, unfortunately, right now, as it seems, you know, as she dives off this boat, it seems like she's completely in the wrong. And this is the part where you really could set up the story a little bit better to make it so the Maul King and Elrond are a bit more reasonable. And then Galadriel maybe has a better point, but maybe it's just a different point of view. You know, one person's not stupid, the other's smart. It's just two different points of view that disagree with each other. Because this is much more what happens in life. You know, most people aren't like, well, instead of doing something smart, I decided to do something dumb. People do that. Granted, but in terms of story writing, you don't want to set that up because nobody's going to buy it. Everyone's just like, this seems dumb from here. And so you have this whole aspect where it just doesn't really work. And then she meets on this boat, she meets some survivors, and then she meets this one survivor who's like moody, broody, hot guy. I do think the show has a weird thing with sexual tension between the races, between elves and people. You know, they really seem to like their tension going between them where, hey, maybe something's going to happen. Maybe it's not. You know, he looks all moody and broody with his bangs. You know, he's got that thing where he, like, looks up at her and then he's got the bangs down here and he's like, no one understands me. He's got a nose there from there. And it's just, I don't know, whatever. I mean, this is the part where I have to be careful because it feels like I'm nitpicking at this point. Because now I'm starting to look for the reasons because it so far hasn't done it. And it's like, imagine what had happened if you'd skipped all of this and Galadriel goes up to the ice castle. You know, she goes, hey, this is how we're going to rewrite the story. All right. So Galadriel, they're going up to the winter wastelands. They climb up this cliff and they get up here and the men are like, can we go home? And she goes, yes, you guys go home, I'm going on. And then they see the giant ice castle or black tower thing. And then the troops go, actually, we'll explore this, rest up, get out of the weather, get out of this blizzard that's killing us. And then we're going to go home. We'll stay the night, you know, the whole shebang from here. They go in here, find signs of Sauron and everything like that. The men go, hey, we kind of want to go back. And Galadriel says, yes, of course. You guys go home. I've killed the ice troll. I'm much more well-equipped than you guys. You guys need to go home. Go back and report. You know, you guys go back and report to the Maul King. I'm going on ahead. And then she continues on her journey. And she just keeps going. She's like, you know what? I'm on a quest for vengeance. I'm going to keep going. And then lo and behold, she comes across some survivors. Bam. That's how you get to the exact same point that you wanted to here without the suicide attempt, without this terrible plan, without all of this crap that has to come through. That's how you solve that. And this is kind of the problem that the show is running into really quickly from here, is that the whole story is really clinching and relying on Galadriel to help carry it, because even though there are 4 other plot lines, hers is the primary one. You know, obviously, hers is the primary one. And it's just not working. And I think this is one of the reasons, probably not the only, you know, people have bad reasons as well. But this is the reason why you had a lot of people reject it and say, this is the worst thing ever from here, because they really did feel this rejection aspect. I talked about this in another story, which was The Last of Us. The Last of Us 2, where we had, Abby as a character. You had this audience rejection where the story said you're supposed to like her, and bam, nobody did. They really felt this, where the audience, the authors and the writers were really trying to push and force this upon you. They're trying to set this up, Elrond and the Mall King are ganging up, this men's sexist, they're not listening to her, they're trying to manipulate her, but it just doesn't, the audience doesn't buy it. And so what you have is this complete rejection, and this is what I think has kind of caused a lot of the issues with the initial story, is just that the fact that they didn't sell us on her character well enough to do the things that they wanted to do from there. So, but yeah, I think that covers it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one.